From the outside, everything looked perfect. A wildly successful podcast, 2 best friends, millions of views, and a fan base that couldn't get enough of their chaotic, unfiltered energy. But somewhere along the way, that energy shifted. Laughter turned into hesitation. Chemistry turned into tension. And what was once the internet's favorite duo started to feel like a forced performance. No public fallout, no explosive fight. Just a quiet unraveling, episode by episode, glance by glance. And now, after months of rumors, awkward pauses, and cryptic confessions, it's official. The canceled podcast is ending. Not later, not quietly, but sooner than anyone expected. So what really happened behind the cameras? Was it hate, burnout, or something much darker? Something they tried to hide for far too long? Because once you peel back the glitter, the jokes, and the sponsorships, you find 2 women, exhausted, exposed, and done pretending. And the internet? It didn't help. It made everything worse. Let's unravel what really brought canceled to its breaking point. Because the ending wasn't about a contract, it was about survival. It started with a whisper, then came the speculation, and finally a bombshell dropped, just not on their own show. When Tana Mongeau sat down with Logan Paul on his podcast and casually revealed that canceled was ending, fans were stunned. No trailer, no announcement, no closure. Just a vague hint of something broken. Soon after, Tana and Brooke dropped their own episode, ominously titled, Why the Canceled Podcast is Ending. But what people expected to be a final goodbye wasn't. Instead, the 2 explained that they'd simply go their separate ways when their contract expired at the end of the year. At least, that was the plan. Until it wasn't. Because beneath their carefully chosen words and calm delivery, there was a strange tension. They weren't telling the whole truth. And the internet knew it. You don't need to scream to be heard online. Sometimes, a silent shift is louder than anything. Clips started circulating. Moments where Tana looked distant, where Brooke seemed drained. Comments pointing out awkward energy, forced laughter, and sidelong glances. And as fans picked those clips apart frame by frame, something became clear. There was more going on behind the scenes. People speculated everything from jealousy to betrayal. Did Tana feel Brooke was holding her back? Was Brooke done being a punchline? Theories exploded across Reddit and TikTok, fueled by cryptic captions and missing chemistry. But among all the noise, one theme kept surfacing. This wasn't a creative decision. It was emotional. And then, Tana said it out loud. In an emotional twist no one expected, Tana opened up on a new episode. The truth about canceled ending. And what she said changed everything. She wasn't just done with the podcast. She was done pretending. Tana admitted she no longer wanted to see the contract through. That forcing herself to sit on that couch week after week felt like emotional self-harm. That being in Hawaii, far from LA, far from the comments, showed her what peace really felt like. Coming back to LA felt like walking back into a trap. And when she picked up her phone and saw the edits, the hate, the assumptions, it all came crashing down. I thought the strength was seeing this through, she said, but maybe the real strength is ending it. This wasn't about filming for an hour. Tana clarified. Sitting down and talking wasn't the hard part. It was everything else. The scrutiny, the constant dissection of her tone, her expressions, her dynamic with Brooke, the endless cycle of feeding drama to an audience that only wanted more. And worst of all, she wasn't just dealing with internet drama. She was already mentally overwhelmed without it. I'm overwhelmingly unstable with no outside influences, she said. So adding all of this, it's too much. Canceled had become a trigger, and no amount of views or sponsorships could justify that toll. While Tana was ready to walk away, Brooke wasn't quite there. Not yet. In the same episode, Brooke spoke with a mix of sadness and denial. She wanted to look at this as a positive shift, to believe that something beautiful could come from letting go, even if she didn't feel ready. But then she said some things that hit deeper than any edit or clip ever could. I no longer feel at home in this, in the way that I did for so long. That sentence said it all. She wasn't defending the podcast, she was mourning it. Because even if she loved what they built, she couldn't deny it had changed them, and not for the better. At first, it was supposed to be fun. 2 friends, 1 mic, no rules. But slowly, Canceled became more than a podcast. It became a product, a pressure, a space where Brooke and Tana had to relive their past and repackage their pain. because that's what the algorithm wanted. There were expectations now. Episodes had to be bigger, more chaotic, more viral. The same fans who claimed to love them were dissecting every sigh, every eye roll, every missed beat in their banter. It wasn't just about what they said. It was how they said it, how they looked at each other while saying it. And that started to rot the core of their friendship. Brooke once said it felt like they had a child together. But that child was never cute. It was demanding, toxic, impossible to satisfy. They weren't co-hosts anymore. They were co-parents trying to keep a crumbling home intact, while smiling for the camera. The connection between them was always real. The way they played off each other, laughed mid-sentence, finished each other's thoughts. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't fake. But even the strongest chemistry can't survive in a poisoned environment. Tana knew something was off. Brooke felt it too. But both kept going, hoping that one more episode might bring the spark back. It didn't. Instead, it chipped away at what made their dynamic special. What used to be effortless became exhausting. Inside jokes felt like empty callbacks. Moments that once made them laugh left them staring blankly into space. They weren't just losing the podcast, they were losing themselves in it. And when Tana said, "There's no world where this can be repaired," she wasn't being dramatic. She was being honest. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Being watched changes you. It rewires your brain. Every smile, every pause, every word, calculated, replayed, judged. You become paranoid, self-aware to the point of suffocation. And canceled was a magnifying glass. Every week, the internet zoomed in on their worst angles, literally and emotionally. And no one got it worse than Brooke. She became the scapegoat for every awkward moment, every perceived dig, every delay in response. Fans turned her into a character in a drama she never signed up for. Tana saw it, felt it, and hated it. In private, they were still close, still honest, still human. But the second the cameras turned on, that humanity was lost, replaced by performance. Even when they tried to clarify things, it backfired. "I thought that episode would help," Tana said, but it just made things worse. And maybe that's the tragedy here. They were trying to save something that was already gone. When most influencers walk away from a successful show, people assume it's a stunt, a ploy for attention, or worse, some kind of backdoor negotiation. But this wasn't that. Tana and Brooke weren't walking away from a sinking ship. They were stepping off a yacht that was giving them motion sickness. Tana said it best, "No amount of money is worth what we've lost." And that line stuck, because for once, she wasn't talking about brand deals, downloads, or clout. She was talking about friendship, about trust, about mental health. Things that can't be measured in views or dollars. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's survival. Brooke never said she was ready. She said she was trying to reframe the end as a new beginning, trying to accept that holding on was hurting more than letting go. She wanted to believe in a peaceful exit, to salvage what was left. But inside, she was torn. Because while Tana had already detached, Brooke still had hope. Hope that maybe with space, time, and healing, they could come back to it, not the podcast, but them. And when she said, "I no longer feel at home in this," it wasn't just a metaphor. It was grief. The kind of grief you feel when you outgrow something you loved and realize it doesn't love you back anymore. In the chaos of the internet, it's easy to miss the real story. This wasn't two girls beefing. It was two friends protecting something sacred, their friendship. Ending the podcast wasn't giving up. It was choosing each other over the content. When Tana said, "You're more important to me than this," it wasn't a throwaway line. It was a boundary, a declaration, a quiet act of love. And when Brooke said, "I want us to get back to the way we were," you could hear the ache in her voice. Because cancel didn't just shift their dynamic, it fractured it. They weren't enemies, but they weren't the same either. And staying in that space was only making things worse. According to Spotify's episode description, only 6 episodes remain. 6 hours, 6 goodbyes, and then silence. But that silence might be exactly what they need. No more comments dissecting their friendship. No more headlines spinning narratives. No more pressure to perform pain for profit. Just space, breath, healing. The fans are mourning. Some say the show shouldn't end because of haters. Others beg them to just stop reading the comments. But that's the problem. It's never just the comments. It's the constant hum of being perceived. And for people like Tana and Brooke, who've made a career out of being known, the most radical thing they can do now is disappear. This wasn't about drama. It wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't even about fame. This was about two people growing up, outgrowing a version of themselves the internet refused to let go of. They tried to make it work, tried to stay strong, tried to smile through the noise. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. And that's what they did. They stopped. Not because they hate each other, but because they still care. Canceled, maybe ending. But maybe, just maybe, Tana and Brooke aren't. Because when the mics are off and the audience is gone, that's when the real friendship begins again. Quietly, privately, and finally, freely.